And welcome back. While it is a beautiful Thursday morning out, we've got information to share with you. We want to welcome you to our first segment of Open Your Eyes for today, Thursday. With us, we've got Dr. Spencer Chaney, who is a consultant all the way from London, by the way. So we want to welcome you to Belize. We've got Ncole Haylock Rodriguez, who is the Deputy Coordinator, National Security Council Secretariat, and Cuffa Ramirez, very interesting name there, Cuffa Ramirez, Project Liaison Officer, InFoSegura Project, Belize Crime Observatory. Guys, a very pleasant morning.
Good morning, thank you.
So we have been hearing about it. It has been in the news, the Belize Crime Observatory. We want to know as much information as possible. It is something that, of course, for the mere fact that you're here, the country must know about. Talk to us about it.
Okay, the Belize Crime Observatory can be seen as two things. One, for the public, it's a central place that provides crime data, comprehensive, relevant, up-to-date crime information about Belize. It has several components, but we have a user-friendly website for the public, and we have an internal database for internal decision making, for policy makers, for decision makers as it pertains to citizen security, public safety, national security. So that's in a nutshell what the Crime Observatory is.
Now, I love the opportunity to be able to talk about what the data can be used for, both on the public scale and internally. But before we move into that, to understand what this project represents, let's talk about how data has been collected traditionally when it comes to these specific information.
The traditional way, the typical way that data has been collected across Belize has often been very paper-based, quite ad hoc, and it hasn't really allowed for information across the whole of Belize on crime to be integrated in a way to be able to understand differences between different districts, different cities, different towns and villages. What the project has done is literally in the last 12 months, gone through a process where we have been able to pull together information that is being recorded by police officers all around the country, collate that in a standardized format so that it's electronically recorded, and then with that be able to then position accurately on a map, on a digital computer map, the locations of where those crimes have taken place. So we've gone from literally in 18 months from a process where it was a lot of paper-based records, there was a little coordination, or at least coordination in the collation of that information, to a point now where we have pretty good, rich information nationwide across Belize on recorded levels of crime.
Now, Dr. Chaney, it's a great opportunity for you to explain your role within the project. Obviously, you said you come from the University of London?
Yeah, I work for University College London, and I work in a department of crime science and security. And the nature of my work as an academic is that I spend a lot of time working with police agencies and ministries of interior and security all around the world, from New Zealand to Uruguay, and from Belize to obviously back home in Great Britain. Policing is changing, and that's not just in the UK or the USA, but also in the Latin American Caribbean region. It's changing in terms of it's becoming much more harm-focused, it's becoming more intelligence-led, where it needs data to drive that decision-making process. It's becoming more problem-oriented, where we solve problems. Rather than reacting to individual incidents, we solve problems, whether it be gangs or domestic violence, we solve problems. And it's becoming evidence-based. Evidence-based meaning it's all around determining, well, what works and what doesn't. Where the Crime Observatory, where the Belize Crime Observatory fits with that is that it's a small step forward to support the modernization of policing, how the police in Belize go about making decisions, how we go about in Belize dealing with crime problems. It's very difficult to deal with a crime problem if you don't understand what the problem is. By improving the quality of your data, you're in a much better position then to understand what the issues are and then determine how are we best placed to go about tackling and responding to those issues.
Now, I think if we're to look, and from the media perspective, we always keep our own log in terms of major crimes that take place, because it's difficult, one, to get the information from the police department.
No more.
Secondly, and well, that's what I was going to get at. Secondly, sometimes there's a bit of a discrepancy in terms of the statistics that we have versus what is presented by the police. So I can't say which system is wrong, but I can say this. What has been done internally within the police departments to ensure, one, that their collection methodology is accurate, and also whatever database or systems that they're using and the persons inputting are well trained to be able to manage that data?
Well, this is a part of the larger Crime Observatory project, because essentially what you outline is important. In order for us to use information to make wise decisions to address crime and citizen security, we need accurate, reliable data.
Right.
So as a part of the process, and this is a journey that has begun before the Crime Observatory came apart, within the Ministry of National Security, now Home Affairs, where we have strengthened the capacity for the police to collect data using technology. And we have done a lot of training under the Crime Observatory project with regards to analysis and using technology like ArcGIS and crime analysts to utilize the data in a sufficient way. But beginning from the very start of the process, where a person goes into a police station and reports a crime, that's where it starts. So the recording, the inputting of that information in a standardized way in a system has been a work in progress, but we're happy to say that today we have the Crime Information Management System, which is a database, 100% rolled out in the country. So that's one mechanism. And then we have the Joint Information Coordinating Center. That is a unit responsible solely for collection, validating, cleaning, processing, and analyzing crime statistics on a national level. That is the central and official source of crime statistics. So for the media, if you don't get it from JIC or the Crime Observatory, which they are partners, then the information is not official.
You know, gathering data is something, especially to this magnitude, whereby we talk about crime prevention, then again crime. How difficult is that for you? This project, InFoSegura project, when did it came on stream? How long is it now on stream at Cuffa? How long has it been on stream, and is it working for us?
Well, I do believe the InFoSegura project is definitely working for Belize. Actually, InFoSegura stands for Evidence-Based Information Management on Citizen Security in Central America and Dominican Republic. It's shortened, and we use InFoSegura project to refer to this regional project. The idea or one of the main pillars of the InFoSegura project is to improve the quality of data on citizen security throughout the region. And for the InFoSegura project, this Belize Crime Observatory and its launch on Tuesday is a big deal. It's something that's very important, because Belize officially joined the rest of the region by launching its first observatory, because other countries boast of having observatories for different types of crime, different issues, social issues. So we're also expecting to be a link between Central America and the Caribbean, because the Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean states, will be moving towards hopefully establishing observatories in their countries as well. So Belize, as the only English-speaking country in Central America and the Caribbean, we expect to be that link for the InFoSegura project. Well, the InFoSegura project came on stream last year, and I was brought on board in September last year, 2015. And since then, we have been, as Ncole said, conducting training. We also donated equipment. Note that InFoSegura is implemented by UNDP and the National Security Council Secretariat, and it is sponsored by USAID. So we've been conducting training, putting together, you know, the various components of the Belize Crime Observatory, including the website, crimeobservatory.bz. And the website is important because this is our main tool for dissemination of information to the public, because the media will also be able to use this website, look at the publications that come from the observatory, look at the crime data. We also have a tab which we plan to update weekly. So we're also on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. Yes, because social media is important. So that is where InFoSegura is an important element for this project.
And you touched on an important point in terms of whether it's real time. When the data is inputted, is it accessible immediately?
It's not at the moment. The way that the observatory works is that one of the primary purposes of the observatory was to be able to publish accurate national statistics on crime in a manner that then kind of complies with other ways in how statistics are published by other countries. So we can compare differences in homicide, burglary, robbery in Belize now compared to other countries. What we can also do now, one of the things we really were keen to push with the observatory in Belize is not only provide national crime statistics, but provide information at a much relevant level of geography. If you live in Belmopan, Belize City, Dangriga Town, national crime statistics can be interesting, but what's more interesting and relevant is what's happening in your town, what's happening in the area that you live. And through the crime data website here, what we've managed to do is we've managed to aggregate the data and package the data in such a way where it's providing up to date in terms of up to the end of the previous month, up-to-date information on crime data, on a whole range of different crime types.
So what this would do as well is either confirm or dispel what we have considered hotspots for a very long time, because where we only report anecdotally because we hear of certain instances in a particular area, this data would be able to show us. You mentioned a map in terms of where some of the concentrations are.
Absolutely.
To a point, because you need to be careful still in the level of data, the level of information you can provide on a public website, so you don't break data protection rules, you don't identify individuals from that data. So the way that the information is packaged up at the moment is it's packaged up so it provides information at, say, the city level. So we can look at what are the crime statistics for September this year in Belize City. And let's look at that in comparison to, say, Belmopan, San Ignacio, and other parts of the country.
How far back does it go? How much data have you inputted?
2014 to now.
Okay.
Wow, that's nice. Who's in terms of the data, because people would want to know who's privy to information.
Okay, on the website, it's public.
Okay.
Anybody can log on and get information. Internally, right now, the authorized personnel are police officers and commanders, decision makers in the police department. So internally, we have a database, and when you have the JICC, where decision makers can access and do further analysis that's specific to whatever challenge is. So for example, if I'm the commander in San Ignacio Town and I find that there are trends with regards to burglary, I can request an internal analysis that centers on burglary in San Ignacio and a deeper level. So decisions can be made and I can make decisions on how to use my resources to address some of the
or request
challenges.
Additional funds.
Absolutely.
Now, and I think in terms of what I have read on this project, I think that's really what sets it apart from what we've seen. There has been a push, and I think it's a wonderful idea for more evidence-based policies. We've had the BHIS that was established years ago, which is wonderful for the health sector. The Human Development recently launched Belize Info, which is also a great step for that particular sector. But where we have always seen a bit of lagging has been in the analysis of data. In other words, I can know that X number happens in this area, but the Y's aren't being answered. Now, how or who will be responsible for the analysis of the data that is collected or presented on the Crime Observatory website?
Okay, as I mentioned, the Joint Intelligence Coordinating Center is the unit responsible within the police department to do analysis and to do reports for the Commissioner of Police and the commanders within the police department. Now the JICC has the capacity to do analysis on a wider level. They have received training and will continue to do so with the support of InFoSegura to do hypothesis testing and problem solving, the type of things that Spencer mentioned that's important for modern policing. And so the access to that will be from policymakers, decision makers, CEOs, even ministers, head of departments, government officials that can use this information. They have the capacity now to do analysis. For example, I'm the CEO responsible for youth, and I want to find out what are some of the correlates relating to youth-involved violence in Belize City. I can request through that, through JICC, to do some analysis concentrating in Belize City, perhaps on the north side. Perhaps we could look at the relationship between females between a certain age group and their involvement in violence, and deliver reports that's customized to the decision makers and what the policy makers need to do their planning.
Will it be linked with the Belize info?
Sorry?
Will it be linked with the Belize info? Because there's social factors that obviously we know are part of the contributors to crime.
Citizen security is essentially a human development issue, and so if you look at the Belize info, there is a component that focuses on crime data. So the crime observatory feeds into the Belize info. We have a good partnership where we provide them consistent information, and we hope to help them with their database to get the right data needed to create that big picture, a human development picture.
One of the things that we've really focused on doing with the crime data is to get the crime data to be as geographically precise as possible in terms of where the crime has happened. Now, once you have that, the benefit of that is that when you then work with other ministries and other departments who also have data, that data is also most likely to include some geographic element to it. So the joining aspect of bringing the information together is the geography. Where a crime happens on a particular street, or you're looking at crime hotspots in particular neighbours, we can bring in particular neighbourhoods, we can bring in, say, census data from on street illumination, other pieces of information which has a geographic reference, and you bring that, so you analyse them together. You use the geography as the binding mechanism to examine and answer that why question. One thing to say, I work with police agencies all around the world, and I have been really impressed with how the Joint Intelligence Units Coordination Centre, their staff, have really developed their skills, and they've been like sponges to both wanting to improve the quality of the data and the analysis that they do. I did a little workshop with them back in June, where we decided, let's have a look at domestic burglary across the whole of the country. Let's try to make the use of the data that we currently have. And we did this 2-3 day workshop, which resulted in us understanding and revealing patterns that they hadn't really hadn't seen before. Understanding where specifically are the hotspots across the country, where specifically within each of the towns and cities are the hotspots, right down to the individual, say, sub-neighbourhood level. When you get that sort of information, when you begin to cross-analyze it with other information you can access to, you can begin to answer those why questions. And then from a prevention point of view, determine, well, these are the types of activities we need to put in place to counter this type of activity from the
I would imagine simple things like patrols would be changed from that.
But it's then thinking about, right, where, it's not just, we send some patrols over there. It's down to the detail, like where in particular, at which particular time of day, and what exactly do they do when they get there. That's how the analysis can be used. Not just having a police officer standing on the corner looking tough and mean. It's getting them to think, well, what is it that I need to do when I'm at this location to act in a way that's going to counter the crime problem that we've identified.
I love the example that you've given, and I think it's a great point to be able to look at. Once the rollout of the project was started, you started inputting the data. Is there any one particular area on the local front that you started to see perhaps a clearer picture that was lesser understood before, or perhaps we had the wrong impression as to a specific crime.
I think the picture was clear across the board when we started to look at, through the analysis at the different workshops that Spencer did along with us, facilitated along with us, and the GICC. We started to look at crime differently on a whole, because the way in which information was collected previously, as Spencer mentioned, data has been refined a lot more now. The way in which all the fields, the way we look at data. So we have now, since Spencer came on board, a clearer picture of what crime is like in Belize, and it trickles down, because if the GICC has a clearer picture, the commanders have a clearer picture. You know, it is important for crime analysis in the country of Belize and for operations, as they have mentioned.
You know, I wanted to. I really like that. One of the things that we find very, especially for the public, is they're reluctant in terms of giving information so as to eventually get to the culprits or those who are dealing with crime. Spence, you have worked, like you mentioned, with police forces across, well, in London, which has a bigger population than Belize, of course. Yes. You came to Belize. What's the trend right now? What do we see? Because, like Mar mentioned, is in terms of data collection, are we getting some of the areas wrong? What's the trend right now? What in terms of crime in Belize, and how can we better prevent it via the data?
Check the website.
So one of the
I love the answer, because that's the new trend.
Yes.
That's the new trend in terms of getting on the website.
Absolutely. Trends in terms of what crime trends? There are.
Crime trends.
Okay. Across the UK and in other parts of, say, the Western industrial world, crime has continued to fall. Crime has continued to fall for the last 10 years. In the Latin America, Caribbean world, it hasn't. It has either gone up and down, or in some countries, we are seeing worrying trends of it going up. Homicide is not only a problem in Belize, it's a problem across the whole Latin American Caribbean region. And at the moment, there is a lack of a strategy around how do we go about reducing homicide. Now, homicide, thankfully, there's only about 120 homicides per year in Belize, based on police recorded crime figures. So it's not necessarily high in volume, but it's high in rate. Belize shouldn't have a homicide rate that high. And in the last year, it's gone up a bit. Now, where this information can help is that rather than just looking at data and saying, oh, look, we have some patterns of crime, what this should be then doing is informing those strategies, those plans. What is the plan in Belize for reducing homicide? Similar with other crime types, domestic burglary. Domestic burglary has been increasing slightly in Belize over the last few years. When we have this information, when we have a clearer picture about what the crime problem is, it then naturally prompts us, should naturally prompt people like the Belize police to then think, well, what can we do about it? What's the plan to actually reduce this problem?
Yeah. Now, let me ask, the crimes are reported essentially when you go into the police station.
That's
and
right.
There's a charge that is the outcome, right? Do you input additional information based on how the crime is reported? In other words, is a homicide automatically recorded as a drug-related incident, as a alcohol-induced incident, as a gang-related incident, the result of a domestic situation? Are those part of the picture that you can be able to capture on the website?
Yes.
Not necessarily on the website at the moment.
Internally.
Or on
Internally within the data that's recorded,
It's definitely recorded. But when it comes to murder or homicides, people always want to know what the motives are.
Yes.
But you all know the process. Yeah. When you're investigating a crime, it takes time. And when you get convicted for a crime, it takes even longer. So people are asked, can you say what % of homicides were gang-related? We can say suspected.
Yes.
We cannot say for sure.
Yeah.
Because of the process that it takes for the criminal justice system to show us that, yes, this murder that happened in 2011 was as a result of gang.
Yeah. And the reason I asked, and to follow up on that, is that there's a level of subjectivity. You know, if I, as the police officer, feel that perhaps this is a gang-related incident, and there may be another route to the problem that I haven't been able to uncover as yet, how will that be reflected in the data that you collect?
I think it's important to recognize that police crime data only provides you with so much information.
Yes.
And one of the things with the Observatory going forward is that we created this foundation where let's focus on, first of all, let's get our crime data in a good enough order for us to start to ask these questions, to do the analysis. In time then, we're looking to then use, add additional information to it. So if you're looking at, say, violent assaults, for example, internationally, only about a third of violent crime is reported to the police. But a lot of those people who are victims of violent assault turn up at emergency departments, at the hospitals. And in other parts of the world, there are information sharing arrangements in place which allow the hospitals to share depersonalized information on people who have come to a hospital emergency department after being a victim of an assault, to add that to, in an observatory, to the crime data. So you can develop a clearer picture. And what is recorded by the hospitals around assault is slightly different to what the police record, and so the information can be complemented. I mean, there are many other different types of data sources that can be brought together to complement the existing police information, to complement that and to begin to answer those other questions that the police data on its own can't answer.
The launch of the Crime Observatory yesterday is the beginning of many phases of development. We recognize that there are gaps, there are challenges, and there are things that we need to work on. Simultaneously, as we develop the Crime Observatory, we want to strengthen our capacity to produce quality data on different levels throughout the criminal justice system, not just for police. But as Spencer said, we need to get our own house in order and start with the police data and the quality.
There has to be a launching,
absolutely,
a launch pad, I should say. Obviously, when we look at the police department, if we're to focus just in that area for a second, there are two areas of concern for me. One is that they're transferred very often, they're moved around. So what have you done to be able to compensate for that in terms of the training? And secondly, we know we're under-resourced. We know that a lot of times they're short of staff, they may not have as many people to dedicate to just inputting data as you would like to have. So how do you counter these specific challenges when it comes to working with the department so that the gathering of data is the best quality that you can have?
Well, training is continuous within the police department, so is transfers. But luckily for us, the Joint Intelligence Coordinating Center, which is perhaps one of these central partners, has been consistent with regards to its personnel and the analysts that's been working there for, I would say, consistently for 5 to 6 years now. It's the same analysts, and so we have retained that, and they have had several bouts of training. But training continues from you enter into the academy. It's consistent, and it will continue. Luckily, we have the support of IDB, UNDP, and the InFoSegura project, which they have committed, or they will like to continue to support the development of the Crime Observatory and to focus on analytical capacity, data collection, and data management capacity for the police and for the civilians from the Secretariat that works on this initiative.
Excellent.
And is there, obviously there are continuous reports that go up to higher levels within the government. How will this, in your opinion, affect the policies and the legislations that will potentially come, given the fact that we have a comprehensive look at the data?
This is why the CEO for the Ministry of Home Affairs made a decision for the Crime Observatory to become a function of the National Security Council Secretariat. You know, the National Security Council is chaired by the Prime Minister, right? So the Observatory is his and the persons that make up the National Security Council and the National Intelligence Committee.
Excellent.
I think one of the things as well that some of the initial analysis that the analysts connected to the observatory have done is that they have really powerfully revealed just how much crime concentrates. The burglary analysis revealed that across the whole of the country of Belize, 1 in 6 burglaries take place across just 30 streets.
Just 30 streets?
30 streets. Wow. So if you think of that from a policy point of view, from a policy prevention point of view. Well, that then says, well, look, we've all got limited resources. We don't have an exhaustive length of resources. But if I target my resources to a particular area, we can have a significant impact in making people's lives better. Because these are the places where we have a particular problem with this particular crime. Let's focus our attention to those areas. We can't cover the whole of the country. We can't be there 24/7. But it provides us with a better means to now identify where specifically and when specifically we need to be, and what we need to be doing when we get there.
Excellent. While we wind down when it comes to time, is there any information you guys would like to share that we haven't touched on?
I would like to speak a bit about the logo and acknowledge Mr. Gabriel now, who is a St. John's Junior College student. He was the one who designed the Belize Crime Observatory logo. In April, we did a logo competition tour across the country, and we visited all the tertiary level institutions, and this was our first step at basically sensitizing, academia about the Belize Crime Observatory. So this is the logo that you will see on all our material on the website. Notice that it tells you Belize with the map, the crime with the handcuffs, and that introspection with the magnifying glass. So we want to thank him very much for designing this logo for us, because this is the face of the Belize Crime Observatory.
I'd just like to add one thing as well. That's most of the countries across the Latin American and Caribbean region are publishing now crime statistics at the national level. Belize is the first place in the whole region to not only publish data at the national level, but publish data that's up to date up until the end of the previous month, and down to these smaller geographic areas. There is no other country currently in the Latin American Caribbean region that's doing that, that's going that far.
All right. And lastly, I want to encourage the media, the general public, to utilize the website, and if there are things that they see that they would like to recommend, concerns, questions, they can contact the Crime Observatory, the Secretariat. We plan to have some blogs following your lead to have discussion and some debate about crime and citizen security, public safety concerns at the community level, so people could be engaged. We would like to hear what their concerns are.
All right. And the website once again is?
www.crimeobservatory.bc.
Okay, be sure to check it out. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Congratulations on reaching this point, and of course we look forward to being able to access accurate and reliable data through the website, and obviously see it drive proper policies. Thank you.
Definitely music to our ears. But then again, we've got much more to share with you. Coming up in our second segment, we'll be looking at quality improvement and vector control. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.